Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host Brian. Today I welcome a special guest from the Knightfall band. We got Keith. How you doing today, brother?
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me, Brian. I really appreciate it.
No worries. I guess how you been recently? Because I think I've been checking out some of your Facebook posts. I guess you went through some sort of surgery recently.
Yeah, a pretty big one. It was a major one. They had to do kind of a replacement of my cervical spine completely from my C2 all the way to my T1. It's a 12-hour surgery. It's was one of the longest surgeries that could have been possible for something like that without splitting it into multiple days of surgery. So recovery is 3 to 4 months. I'm about 3 weeks in, and this lovely contraption that's on me right here is called the cervical stimulator. It actually regrows bone because they had to cut out a lot of bone, so it uses frequencies to aid in regrowing bone, which is a really cool piece of technology that they've come up with.
I guess how does this happen? Was this something genetic, or did you do something injure? Did you injure yourself back then?
So it's basically what we determined was back in 2008. I was in a very severe car crash. I came out of it okay. Like there wasn't like any damage that they saw, but they thought it was just whiplash, so they never actually took an X-ray. Well, it looks like I did fracture my spine in my neck, and because of that, it regrew very poorly, and over the last 15 years, caused my entire spine to just start going the wrong way, and it was he said it was one of the worst in his 25 years of doing neck and back surgeries, one of the worst he's ever seen. So
Oh man, that must have been something too. Sounds pretty scary too. So I guess how you feeling right now?
there's it's better than I was the first week, let me tell you. The first week I felt like, pardon my French, I was in my own personal hell. Um, so now I've gotten to a point where the pain is still there, but it's controlled. And as long as I don't do a ton, I have physical therapy twice a week and stuff. So they push me pretty hard during physical therapy to start getting my movement back. So I kind of do some exercises at home throughout the day, and I kind of just take it easy. I'm on a 10-pound lifting restriction right now. So I really can't do much until they clear me for more things.
Is it pretty hard to walk too? Like, do you really need like some sort of help trying to move you around too?
At first, yeah, because the my equilibrium was completely off. Putting the metal in my neck makes it weird because I have to move differently and I have to kind of relearn how my body functions. Part of what was happening is at the C5, it was so impinged that almost no spinal fluid was getting through. So it started causing my entire left arm to start to go dead. Basically, it was completely numb. I finally have feeling back there. My fingertips are still a little tingly, but for the most part, that has returned to normal. And they told me that I should, get more and more feeling as time goes on. Then, of course, because they had to do surgery both here in the front, but they also had to do a major one in the back too. Yeah, they cut my throat right here. So they had to move my esophagus, move my voice, my vocal cords. It sucks. I can't sing. Like I've lost the ability to sing right now. Hopefully it comes back, but that was one of the things that they warned me of, is that that could be permanent. So hopefully I've got my speaking voice back, which is good because I had like no voice whatsoever the first week, but I still have no ability to sing, which is bumming me out a little bit. But hopefully over time I can get that fixed. Some of my collaborators, like Adrian and Jessica, who are amazing vocalists, and Pete, of course, they all told me that they would help me with vocal exercises to help me get my voice back.
I was like, geez, this makes like a pretty good Grey's Anatomy episode when you think about it too. So
Yeah, yeah. This was crazy. I never expected at 40 years of age to be having quite a major surgery like this that you know could have long lasting impacts. But so far, it was a success, and now I just got to go through the recovery process, which Full recovery takes 6 to 12 months, but I should be back to being able to do like normal, like a lot of my normal stuff within 3 to 4.
All right, sounds good. That's very good to hear. Yeah, it's good to see you are doing well there, mate. So it's good to have you around here too. So
Thanks, man.
no worries. And you'll get to elaborate on your music here in just a little bit here too. But Keith, I want to welcome you to my podcast. And the way it's going to work is, I'm going to ask you some questions right here. Get to know you more both as the musician, but also as the individual as well too. So you ready?
Yeah, go for it, man.
So let's start at the beginning right here, I guess. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, and how did you become a musician?
So I am Keith Dombrowski, and I've been doing music since I was about 7 years old. Started with a violin, and so I was at the Thayer Conservatory in Lancaster, Massachusetts. My mother wanted me to do some kind of musical instrument, and we thought the violin would be a good idea, and I was pretty good at it. Without being, I was 7, so I didn't really, understand theory or anything like that yet, but I had a good ear for it. So my teacher, she wanted me to learn, and we went through the Suzuki book method. I got to book 3. And then I decided that, those 2 things. I decided I didn't want to do the violin anymore because the drawing of the bow on the string started causing me to grind my teeth. It was, how some people have issues with the hand on the chalkboard. That's what it was like for me. So it started this tick, where I had no control over the teeth grinding. So I had to stop. But then I still wanted to do music. I loved musicals. I loved all of that, but one of my favorite movies was, Newsies. And I loved, stuff. My mom loved things like Xanadu and like, all of these musical-esque things. So I loved music. And she had an old acoustic upright piano. So I just sat in front of it one day when I was probably 13. And I just started plucking away. I just started pressing keys, seeing what things did, and over time taught myself how to play. So I have no formal training whatsoever. I do not read music at all. I do everything by ear.
Improvise.
Improvise. That's in a nutshell my musical history, and to get started. And then, of course, I started moving into the band stuff as I got older.
That's a pretty cool story. And it's always funny with some of these interviews too, because I actually learned people were actually former strings players as well too, because I was the same way, but I played cello way back in the day. And I didn't have any issues, kind of like what you were going through. But the problem was when I was going off to college, they didn't have a music program. Or the one that I wanted to go to college was all the way like 3 hours away there too. So I didn't want to be too far away from home. So unfortunately, it just sat around collecting dust. So we eventually decided to sell it. And then actually I took up drums quite by accident because I was playing the video game Rock Band. That's how it started there. So it's one of those things, like video games actually were good for something for once. So
yep.
So
no,
that's how I got into drumming. Yeah.
I enjoyed Rock Band and Guitar Hero, and that's what made me. Guitar Hero is actually what made me finally decide to try guitar, because I've been piano my entire life, but I knew I was going to need to learn guitar if I wanted to be able to get some of the ideas from here down. So I taught myself basic rhythm. I can't do leads to save my life, but I can do rhythm guitar fairly well.
I guess what song kind of sold you with Guitar Hero? Was it For the Fire and the Flames?
Oh, no. Kidding me? It was Guitar Hero 1, and it was totally Bark at the Moon.
Okay, fair enough. Actually, I wasn't sure because they always promote about 2 as well, because I think they had the song from Buckethead, Jordan, right? I think that's what it was. And,
yeah.
Where's that one? And I know they also did Freebird on that as well there too. So I do remember playing a little bit too. That was kind of fun way back in the day. Actually, it was more Guitar Hero 3 that kind of got me into it. So I kind of went a little bit backwards, so to speak. And then eventually got into Rock Band afterwards.
No, playing Bark at the Moon, just even though it was just colored buttons to do all of that, it was just so much fun that I was just like, you know what, guitar playing, if you learn guitar playing, it must be just fun to do, even if you're doing just like catchy rhythmic stuff. So yeah, I sat down, same thing with the piano, and I started teaching myself. I started doing that like right around the time I started as I came back to music. We can talk about that. I'm sure that'll come up in a different question, um, but yeah, that's how I started.
I think it might come around here too, but I guess let's go ahead and talk about the band in general. So I guess let's hear the history of Nightfall. So I guess was this your first band, or I guess how many bands have you been a part of?
So Nightfall is a studio project, really. If it becomes successful enough, then we could probably turn it into a touring thing. Because I would love to do that, but music industry the way that it is right now is it's expensive to do all those things, and without a label backing you, it's kind of hard to take a project like this, which is similar to like Avantasia and the stuff that Magnus Carlsen does with his studio albums with guest vocalists and stuff like that. That's actually where I got the idea of how to do this. But no, it's not my first band. I did a lot of musical theater, so I did a lot of performing when I was younger and into my high school and college years and stuff like that. So I did a lot of that. My degrees in musical theater. So in 2007, I joined forces with a guy by the name of Todd Miller and his band Evans Ethos. And in 2008, we invited Anaria's lead singer, Jessica Mercy. Yeah, this was back when she didn't have any band or anything like that either. So we invited her. I met her through, was it Bandmix or something, one of those sites. And I heard her and I saw the potential there. And I was like, you should come for an audition. We're going to be holding an open audition at this gaming store in Worcester, Massachusetts, or actually Leicester, Massachusetts. And she decided to come. And I knew, even though we had a whole bunch of people show up to do auditions, I knew she was going to be the one before she even stepped through the door. I just needed the guys to hear her so they could all hear what I hear. So, of course, we did that. And then we started creating the music. There was already a few songs that Todd and I had started writing, and then Jessica, added her flair to it. And we came out with an EP in 2009, August of 2009, and we started playing out live shows shortly thereafter. There were some issues with internal stuff and creative differences, and I'll say all the nice terms, but there was definitely some headbutting, with stuff, and I decided that I didn't want to be a part of it. So I took my leave of the band and moved. And they kind of stayed together for a little bit, did a couple of, they tried to resurrect things, but me being one of the main writers, it was difficult. And then they rebranded completely to Anaria, and kind of got a whole brand new lineup, and then put out a couple of songs and then changed lineups again. And now I think they're like 6 albums in, or maybe 5 or 6 albums in now. So technically, Anaria was my first band back when we were known as Evans Ethos. All the songs that I wrote with Jessica and Todd are on their 2014 release, which can be found on any streaming platform. It's called Ancestors, and all of the 2009 demos are there.
That's quite an extensive story. So I guess how'd you come up with the name Nightfall too? It's with like the Night's Watch of Game of Thrones.
No, actually, Game of Thrones had nothing to do with it. So there's a TV show called Knightfall, and I had watched it, and it's all about Knights of the Crusades and stuff like that. And um, essentially, when I came up with the name, it was after 2020. It was post COVID. My dad had passed. There was a lot of stuff going on, and I just saw, it was also during that political divide with our country as well in the United States. So, the red versus blue saga, where I had family members that were disowning each other. Like, I was watching all of these conversations, and I'm just like, what is happening? Like, why? Like, seriously, like, and then I'm thinking about, the 90s and in the early 2000s, when we could have political debates and it wasn't so much hate, right? And I'm sitting here going, I'm like, what's happened to the world? Where is the kindness gone? Where's the honor? Where's the chivalry? Like, where did all of this go? So the reason why Nightfall was I wanted to bring that back. I wanted to bring the age of chivalry back into the world, in a small way, my way, whatever way was possible. And that's kind of where I start. I wanted it to be thematic of the night. Knightfall happened because of several reasons. One, the TV show. Two, the biggest influence that I have on this planet is the band Nightwish. And that's where I found symphonic metal. Thomas is the reason why I decided I wanted to create symphonic metal, is after listening to, Nightwish for many, many, many years. I just, when Once came out, Once is my favorite album of all time. Ghost Love Score is my favorite song of all time. And after listening to that album, I knew that's the style of music that I wanted to do, but I wanted to do it, with my own flair. I was a kid at the time, so I wasn't there yet, which is funny. So even the stuff that I did with even Ethos or Anaria, it was good, but you can still see the immaturity of the orchestration. I hadn't learned enough at that point in time to be what I am now at 40 years of age. But that's why Knightfall happened, is I wanted to bring that back, and I wanted to pay homage to the band that got me really into this style of music, and just kind of use that to build more than just a music. It's a platform. It's an ideal as well. So that's how the name happened.
That's great. There's a story, and there was actually a good bit in there that delves into some of the other questions right here, which we'll get to in just a moment here too. But I know you talked about how COVID seemed to break America's back in a manner of speaking, but also maybe the world too. But just strictly in America wise, I feel like it's still because of an after effect of 9/11 when you think about it, because
Yeah.
I think everyone got really scared afterwards there too. So it was like, who can you trust at this point?
Yeah, the fear
It
is
was
still there.
It was that, yeah. So I can definitely see that too. And not that exactly bash, but I think because Trump's little style of the WWE sort of fighting style, the fighting man, I think that's unfortunately playing a bad role as well there too. So it's become part of the mentality there too. So it's like, fuck you, I'm not going to do what you tell me. Sort of like the
Right.
quote, rage against the machine. So yeah, so it is unfortunate. But I guess while we're on that topic here too, I guess, how bad did COVID impact you personally? And I know you talked about it a little bit family wise. So if you want to jump into that story again, and then music wise there too.
So music wise, not really, because at the time, so when I left Evans Ethos, I stayed in the music business doing little things. I was helping a friend's band. I was helping another friend do some shows and touring and stuff like that, and that lasted probably until 2012. And then I left, sold my keyboard. I started a family. I hung up my instruments and moved away from Massachusetts again, and didn't look back for almost 10 years. It wasn't until the very end of 2019 that I started even playing the piano again. I hadn't played the piano in like 8 years, not like extensively. Like a couple of times I ran into a place where there was a random piano, and I would sit at it and just, play something because I still knew how. But as far as practicing, hadn't done anything in a long time. My mother passed away in 2017. We had a series of deaths in the family. My father-in-law, my brother-in-law, my uncle, a couple of friends. So my wife noticed that without music, I was slowly turning inwards on myself, and I was becoming just this giant depressed blob. So she says, "You never do anything for yourself. You always, make sure that myself and the kids are taken care of first. Why don't you get a keyboard and start playing again? Because that's when you were your happiest, is when you were playing music." So originally that's just how it started. So in 2019, I just started playing again. I started writing songs and playing again. And I had no intention of creating a band. But, and then 2021 rolls around. COVID happens. I wrote a lot of songs during COVID because of a lot of emotions. I write when there's a lot of emotional stuff going on. So whether it be sadness, anger, whatever emotion it may be, when I'm feeling something strongly, I go and I write. And my dad passed away, in 2021, complications of diabetes and neuropathy. And as he was at home in hospice, I went down to and I created a song called "Not Ready to Let You Go," which we are actually working on a rendition of that. That will be releasing as a single later this year. Sergio Salvucci is going to be doing the instrumentation on it, and Adrian Jouadou is going to be doing the vocal on it because I can't touch that song. I just can't. I've got my demo of it, and it's too hard for me to even play. So I sent my demo to Sergio, and he's taking care of it for me. Thank you, Sergio. But he said some things to me. So I finished that song and I recorded a version of it to my phone, and I played it for him while he was still coherent. And he was reduced to tears, and it took a moment for him to compose himself. But right after I played that for him, he apologized to me for not taking the music stuff seriously and not pushing me to do it, not supporting me. He always, was like, you need to have a good, steady job, son. It was always that type of thing. He didn't believe in me when it came to the music stuff back then. So he apologized for that. And he told me that, that this was my calling, that everybody has a calling to do something. And this was my calling to do music. And that he felt like this is something that I really could do. And he said, I think this was your destiny, son. And he told me to always follow my dreams, and then a few days later he passed away, which was one of the most difficult things, having a parent in the home, taking care of them and having them pass with you, there basically. I didn't, necessarily see it, but my wife was with him when he passed, and then she came and got me. But I think he was waiting for me to leave the room, actually. But I held on to that, and I still hadn't started anything at that point. But then I realized that, I had my father's blessing, something I had looked for so many years. And that pushed me really hard to start doing stuff within the music realm again. And I hadn't done it in so long, I had no idea what to do. So a friend of mine, Patrick Goebel, who is married to my wife's best friend, he's a music teacher, guitar teacher, piano teacher. He's multi-instrumentalist, fantastic talent. And he also does production. And so I started taking some production classes with him. And then as we started working together and I was showing him these demos I was coming up with, he was like, holy shit, dude, like, if you need a guitarist, and I was like, well, yeah, because I already knew how good he was. I was like, I'd be happy to work with you, man. So we started, I created the name. We started recording the first demo in 2022, and we released Waiting for You in June of 2022 just to see, kind of wet the waters and see how it would be received and start building the platform based off of that song. And that song was more of an 80s tribute than anything else. So it wasn't really symphonic, but it was just to kind of see if this was something that we could do. And that's kind of how the band started and where the name comes from.
Damn, that's a pretty powerful story right there, too. So I can see. Did you have any brushes with COVID? Were you personally okay?
Because I was a diabetic, I worked for Verizon during COVID. Verizon was probably one of the top companies to be working for during COVID. They didn't fire anybody. So even though they shut down stores and stuff like that, or some of the stores remained open at a very limited basis, they sent me home and gave me a work from home job, which turned permanent essentially. So because I was a diabetic and high risk, they were like, we can't have you in the store. So you need to go home. So for like the first month, they paid me without me having to actually even go in, which was awesome. Fantastic company to work for. But then they allowed me to do this job from home, and I've kept my job. I've been doing sales with them ever since. So from a family perspective, I wasn't hit hard with it. And my wife was already not working because we have 3 children, and all of them were very, they were, I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, or an almost 8-year-old, and an almost 7-year-old. So they would have been even, younger. Daycare would have cost more than my wife working a job at that point. for 3 kids. So that's kind of how my COVID story went. So COVID didn't impact me a great deal, except for the fear and seeing the hate mongering and all of the stuff that came with COVID.
Yeah, and I mentioned that earlier there too. So, and I'm really sorry for all the losses, and I guess even the little division that's kind of going on in your family right through. So, hopefully, hopefully, good days around the corner there too. So, we'll see what
Well,
happens.
just like every situation, you deal with it. You figure out the best way to move on, and you want to know what if there's something that's toxic or cancerous in your life, that you remove it, and that's what we did.
Good man. So, all right. I can't wait to go to work there too, and it's good to see you're doing well, and good to have you around for the ride here, Keith. So,
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
all right. I know you mentioned about influences earlier too with Nightwish. Actually, originally I was thinking of Dying Wish because I kept hearing the song "Path to Your Grave" a good number of times already. So that's why I thought you were referring to it first. But outside of Nightwish, I guess who else influenced you in terms of, I guess, your play style and everything?
So this is kind of more of a fun story. So I hadn't heard metal until the early '90s. Like my parents kept me kind of sheltered from that. I listened to my dad's music, which was, Creedence Clearwater Revival was probably the hardest music that he listened to. So I heard things like Everly Brothers, Simon and Garfunkel, Righteous Brothers, a whole bunch of country like Johnny Horton, Kenny Rogers, Tammy Wynette, Glenn Campbell. So I was raised with a lot of that stuff. And then my mom was like Yanni and Anne Murray and all of these, easy listening or like in some ways symphonic or musicals for that matter. So my first introduction to metal outside of like maybe listening to like Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer on the radio or something like that, right? My first introduction to metal was the song Symphony of Destruction by Megadeth, which randomly I was at a campground and we were playing pool, and one of the kids came in, put a quarter into the jukebox, and chose to hit that song. And when that song hit, I was obsessed with it. I went down there every single day that I was at that campground, and I took bags of quarters to listen to that song. I listened to that song over and over and over again. And then I begged my parents to let me buy the album. And when I bought it on cassette tape because we didn't have CD players at that point yet. I mean, they were out, but we didn't own any. So I bought that on cassette tape. And then later I did buy it on CD as well. But Countdown to Extinction was my first metal album. So I have Megadeth to thank for, getting me into metal in general. And then during like the Napster, LimeWire, Kazaa era where, illegal downloading became a thing, I randomly stumbled onto, Metallica had done in 1999, they had done their album with was it San Francisco Orchestra, S&M, their S&M album. And I had bought that and I loved the mixture of the classical music with that. And then I started looking for more music like that to see if there's any bands that actually did that. And I stumbled on a band called Stradivarius, which had been around for a long time, Finnish power metal, symphonic metal band. And I just my first song with them was Hunting High and Low in the year 2000, which I started downloading all of their stuff. And someone had mislabeled Wishmaster by Nightwish as a Stradivarius song. And I accidentally downloaded that. And of course, I knew it wasn't Stradivarius, so I figured out who it was. It was Nightwish. And then I went down the Nightwish rabbit hole. And then, of course, Century Child came out, which had the Phantom of the Opera cover, which, musicals and metal. Oh, my God. That was just the coolest thing. And then I just kept going down that rabbit hole of power metal, Hammerfall, Avantasia, all of those bands. And I just loved the mixture of the way they did guitars, drums, the vocals with the classical mixture in there. So then when 2004 came and Nightwish did the Once album, I mean, I was absolutely sold. And then pretty much like every symphonic metal band that's come out since then, I have, even if I end up not liking them, I've checked out pretty much every single one I can get my hands on, because that music is just like the coolest thing to my ears ever. And that's the reason. Yeah, those are my influences, really. And then, of course, you have, this one is also a big one, Queen. I fell in love with Queen. Freddie Mercury's voice, and particularly, a song, of course, Bohemian Rhapsody, but my favorite song is Show Must Go On. It's one of the most heart-wrenching songs on the planet if you truly understand where he was coming from when he wrote those lyrics and stuff like that. And I absolutely loved the vocal on that. And, Freddie's one of my favorite all-time vocalists. And so Queen is also a major influence on me as well.
I'm gonna say you're gonna dress like Freddie Mercury if you ever go live.
Huh?
Are you ever gonna dress like Freddie Mercury if you ever go on a live stage?
No, I'm a bit bigger. I think the outfits that he wore would not be flattering on me whatsoever.
We'll say, hey, one can dream. So it's all good. And I guess were you into like other like death metal sort of groups that did do that symphonic style? Because I know one in particular that I've been listening to a good bit is Flesh God Apocalypse.
So I've heard a couple of songs of them. One of the ones that really got me though was Children of Bodom. I was very much into the Finnish bands, very much. Alexi Laiho, I love the way Alexi played, and when I found out that he taught himself how to play guitar, yet he was so good and like this very successful musician that did everything by ear. You know what I mean? I was like, that's really really cool, and I enjoyed the musical composition of Children of Bodom. Even though like the constant screaming is not my favorite thing on in metal music, I didn't mind it so much because of how well constructed those songs were with the keyboards, with the guitars. It was melodic. It was very melodic death metal, and I really really enjoyed that. And I've enjoyed other groups that are very, very much that way, like Equilibrium, for example, is another one that I absolutely adore. German melodic symphonic death metal, I think, is what they classify themselves as. But I don't listen to a ton of that. I did get into metalcore a bit too, so I do like Bullet for My Valentine and stuff like that. And then I do enjoy some of the goth metal like Him and Black Veil Brides and stuff.
So, oh my gosh, I remember seeing too many of those commercials of Black Veil Brides. I think it was because I don't know if it was because it was on demand or what. It was just MTV in general, but they played it one too many times, and now I'm just kind of sick of Black Veil Brides. So,
see, I found them. I don't listen to them that often. I found them because of the movie that Andy Biersack did, American Satan, I believe is what it's called, and that turned into that TV show Paradise City, where they Asking Alexandria and a few of these other bands from Sumerian Records are a part of that project, and I started listening to a lot of metal that Sumerian Records actually puts out, and I enjoy a lot of the stuff that they do.
Yeah, and also recipes to Lexi Laiho. That was kind of a tragic story that happened. Was that 2 years or 1 year ago now?
Actually, I think it's even been longer than that since he
Has it?
passed. I think it's been 3, if I'm not mistaken.
You know what? I kind of wish I gave him more of a chance. I wasn't into him at first, but I kept seeing guys wearing the t-shirts in school, and I listened to a couple of songs. The "Are You Dead Yet" album, that was pretty much the one I listened to from them the most. So,
Yep.
may he rest in peace.
My first Bodom song was Bodom After Midnight, and I just the breakdown in the middle before the last chorus that caught me, and I was just like, this is amazing guitar playing just on both ends, and I was just like, this band's awesome. I gotta hear more of them. Again, don't care for constant screaming, but as if you've listened to any of the Knightfall music, I do use it in certain spots. Like it's not a constant thing, but it's there as an accent. I think that growls and screams work wonderfully as accents in certain music. That's why I like Amaranth is one of my favorites, because I like the way they have 3 vocalists and do that with their music.
Actually, are you into Dimmu Burger out of
Yep.
what was it, Sweden?
Yep, Dimmu Borgir. Yep, that's another one that I just, because again the musical composition is really really cool. And Shagrath, he did I love the band Camelot as well, and he did March of Mephisto with Roy Khan. He was the growler in the background there for that song, and that's how I found Dimmu Borgir, is through Camelot.
Yeah, they're an interesting group. Actually, I do remember a friend of mine who I used to play football with. He wear those Dimmu Borgir shirts. He's like, "Oh, these guys got their own symphonic orchestra band." I was like, "Seriously?" And I actually saw a video. I was like, "Oh my gosh, these guys got a full orchestra and everything too."
Yes, they do. Yep, they went
So,
full out, and I loved the makeup. I mean, they put on a show. It was more than just the music. And if I ever take Knightfall, to a place where we do touring, that's what I want. As I want it to be an experience, like Trans Siberian Orchestra. I don't want it to be just this little tiny thing. I want it to be an experience for everybody that is more than just the music. That you have a fantastic time going to see the show because of the stage show.
it could be like Marcus Aurelius afterwards too. Be like, "Are you not entertained?" Yeah.
Right. Good old Gladiator, which is one of my favorite soundtracks, actually.
Yeah. Actually, I keep seeing like pictures on Facebook here too. It's almost like they're referencing maybe like an historical event, but it always looks like a gladiator scene, for instance, too. It's always funny.
Yeah.
So, and I guess, how would you describe your genre of music? Are you more into the power metal, or are you like symphonic power metal?
So it's a mixture. So when I set out to create this, I didn't want to be defined by a single genre. So this is a mixture of genres. The best description, if you want to do a quick description, is symphonic power metal with 80s fusion. That's the quick description. However, I also incorporate musical theater into what I'm doing with this, and I also incorporate some ideas from pop music as well. Some of the choruses are very pop rock versus the metal, and again that's by design because I want some of this. I want to be able to have something on a Knightfall album that can reach a multitude of people. So maybe one song somebody from the pop world loves, one song someone from the metal world loves, another one someone that loves 80s hair bands is going to enjoy. So I tried to put enough eclectic stuff in there that on a Knightfall album there's something for everybody.
Let's say we're indiscriminate in that case. We like to spread the word out to everybody out in the world there too. So I can see why. I would say in my line of music, which I've collaborated with like a couple people in our indie community,
Mm,
I've always kept it more of the metal. I've done a couple of Storm King where he kind of messes around with like folk, maybe a little techno, keyboard styles, a little symphonic as well there too. But he,
I love Storm Kingdom. The stuff that he does, I always pre-save and listen to his music as soon as they release stuff, and he's got a good thing going on. I've thought about asking him to do a collab at some point.
actually I've already done two with him right now, and yeah, he's an awesome dude. I always love messing around with him. And you guys should check out his interview on my YouTube channel and everything because he did it right from his car, so I considered it like his holy abode. If you want to call it that too, or his
Yeah,
pantheon if
him.
you want to. But yeah.
The two that I've really listened to a lot of their stuff is Storm Kingdom, and His Theory is another one out of France. His stuff is really really good. And then I also actually is a third one. Farewell Fortune is another one that just like they're more like modern metal, but I love what they do. They're a pretty good one as well.
Charles is the guy from His Theory. So yeah, I actually
Yep.
interviewed him too. So awesome dude. He's quite a talker though too. So brace yourself when you
Yes,
want to
I've had lots of
chat.
conversations with him. We have plans to do something down the line as well.
I actually did reach out to him for a collab as well, but I wanted to see if he wanted to get together with Joel from Steam Slicer and see
Okay,
if we can. Actually, we were going to try to see if we could do like a symphonic sort of death metal style group. So
there you go.
not to see at some point there too. So to be continued. We'll see what
To
happens.
be continued.
Yeah. But I guess let's go ahead and jump to the gear a little bit here too. So I guess what do you use for your gear wise for recording?
So for recording, I use Logic as my DAW. That's there's a reason behind that. I was starting with Pro Tools, and then Patrick had Logic, and he showed me Logic. Logic was just so user intuitive, so much simpler than a lot of the other DAWs that I've seen to use. That for my level of expertise, I felt like that was a much easier one to learn with. That, and I started reading, and most of the major industries. So if I were to work with somebody down in Nashville or New York City, all of the majors are using Logic as their platform, which if I'm using Logic too, makes long distance collaborations and all that stuff much simpler. And then I found out that that's what Anaria uses as Logic. And since I knew I was going to be doing stuff with them, I was like, yep, okay. Jessica's going to be singing on a couple of things. Let me get Logic. So I got a Mac. I've got Logic. I have an M Audio interface with a full-size 88-key M Audio MIDI keyboard. And that's kind of my recording setup. I do have a Schecter Flying V with a custom made that I randomly found at a used instrument store. Someone pawned it, and I'm like, why? It was this beautiful purple one, and then I've also got an LTD V as well that I like to play on. That's got higher gauge strings on it, so it gets a deeper tone than the Schecter does. I do a lot of the guitar work for the demos, and then I hand it off to my guitar players. I come up with the idea, and then I'm like, here's the idea, compound on it, play around with it. We'll send stuff back and forth until we get something that we both truly like. And that's kind of how we do the guitar work. So that's kind of my gear setup. I do a lot of my writing not in front of the computer. And for that, I have a Yamaha Genos workstation, which was the keyboard I bought in 2019 when my wife told me to get back. She was like, get whatever one you want. And I'm like, are you sure? Because this is going to be like a $4,000 keyboard. Are you sure? And she was like, you never buy anything. We have the money right now. Yes, buy it. So it's a total workstation. So if I wanted to, I could just use that. But what's cool is it allows you to put a flash drive in it. So I can play all of my piano parts on there, put a flash drive in, it downloads the MIDI, upload it to Logic, and it's already there for me. So then all I have to do is do some editing. If I hit like a bad note or something like that on it, I can do that. I use the M Audio for a lot of the orchestration stuff though, because that has the articulations. Like I bought I forget which model it is, but it's got the articulation modules on there. So it allows me to be able to play strings, horns, and all these other things, and use the articulation modules to make it sound more realistic.
I'm actually a Logic guy too, so I've been rolling with it for a good while, and it really helps me with my drum covers for my YouTube channel and everything there too. So you're right, it really does come in handy. Even though I use MIDI or like do it because I use an electronic drum set for my whole thing. So yeah.
Listen, I program all of my drums. So I mean, what I do is I'll sit there on the keyboard and I'll play. I'll actually turn it over to like a drum thing, and I'll play it, and then I'll go in and edit stuff where like maybe I don't want to crash here, or I want to change something here. Maybe this beat is quite nice. I'll fix it, but I usually perform the drum by playing it on the keyboard. That's how I do it.
I was like, I'm gonna hate to see how you do blast beats if you ever wanted to do something like that.
I have to do it. So with blast beats, I have to record the bass drum first before I do anything else, and I have to basically use two fingers and go crazy. And that's usually how I do the fast paced drum beats and stuff like that.
I guess it would be the same for double kick pedal too, depending on like what sort of tempo you're going at. So yeah, I think be like.
Yeah, you can do it, and as a piano player, you've got pretty strength, a lot of strength in the hands. So I can move pretty quickly on a piano. So, as long as I've got the MIDI set up correctly, I can play mostly anything. Yes, there'll probably be a couple of things that'll be too fast for me to play, and I'll have to go in and program it manually. But that's about it. I'm hoping for the second Knightfall album to maybe find a drummer to actually do all of that. I'm hoping to be able to do a Kickstarter, so I'll be able to financially compensate people for working on the second album.
Well, hey, I'm a drummer too, so if you're looking, look no further. So it's up to you though. But if you need help, I'm here for you, mate. So
appreciate it.
No worries. And go back to earlier when you talk about like the pirating days, because I know you're talking about LimeWire and all those ones. Actually, I remember Demonoid was actually a real big one that a friend of mine was using to get like all his stuff. He was such a pirate, to be honest. So I guess, did you use any, or did you just kind of see like some friends of yours just using it to like get movies and music and stuff?
When that happened, I was a teenager. So I didn't have money to go out and buy a whole bunch of albums. So of course, when the option to free download stuff came out, I didn't understand the implications. I didn't understand what that was going to do to the music industry. I didn't understand how that took money out of these big artists' pockets because I wasn't a real musician at that point in time. Looking back on it, I regret it because now I realize what it did. And, even though I was really pissed at Lars Ulrich for being such a dick about Napster and all that stuff, looking back on it now, I'm like, son of a gun. He was right. Like, he was a dick, but he was right. Like, look what it's done to the industry. Streaming, all this stuff is destroyed. You cannot make minimum wage as an independent artist, which is one of the reasons why I'm telling everybody, the minimum wage act for musicians that's been proposed it last month, or not last, in March. Everyone needs to look that bill, understand what that bill is, and we need to support it because that's the first step to getting independent musicians paid a minimum wage for doing music.
Is that the whole thing that's going on right now in the U.S. Congress? It's going to get held up.
Yes, we need more people to be talking about it. Well, the reason why it's not going to, we need people to make us think that it needs to be pushed through, because the streaming giants are going to stop that at all costs because they don't want to have to give up any more money. They don't want to have, see what I'm saying? So they're putting in place more and more ways to make it impossible for independent musicians to make a living off of music unless you're, doing lots of touring and you're getting signed by a label or something like that. If this act goes through, it will give us the ability to earn a minimum wage as a musician, right? It's going to force the streaming giants to start paying on top of what they normally pay, a penny per stream. Way better. Way better. Right? So we all, as musicians, need to post about this, send letters to our representatives, let them know that this is something that we do want to go through because this is our livelihood. This is how we start to get paid and how we start to change the landscape of the music industry in our favor.
Actually, I thought they would have changed like how the earning was, because actually a penny per stream, actually that's pretty darn good. That it's more encouraging.
That's way better. Then that's what's proposed. That's what's proposed in the act. What it would do is it would raise subscription prices a little bit, but it would force the streaming giants to it creates a fund for to get us paid directly. Right. That's the other big thing about it is it's money that comes directly. Nobody gets a cut. It pays the artist directly a penny per stream on top of what the streaming companies are already giving.
Oh man, let's try to make it happen here, folks. This ain't about blue or red at this point here too. This is just about livelihood there too. So
nope, there is no that. This is people on both sides of the spectrum should get on board with this one.
Absolutely,
straight up.
Yeah, love to see what happens, but we got to spread the word. Let's keep doing
spread
it.
The word.
Actually, see, we'll put this as a reel on Facebook. We'll see what happens. So we'll see what happens. And we'll say Keith for president. That's what we should do. Knightfall.
It's called Living Wage for Musicians Act.
All right, sounds good. We'll see what happens here too, bud. Fingers crossed. Even though I think it's going to be doomed for lobbying, whatever you think about it too. So that's a downside. So let's see what happens. Right. But I guess in terms of the music that you guys put together, I guess tell us your process of like how you guys create the song. So do you always do the music first and then lyrics last?
Yeah, it sometimes changes. So I mean, there's really no set way to do music, honestly. Sometimes I'll get an idea for a riff, or I will get an idea for a progression. In my head, I will compose the music first and think about the lyrics later. Other times, I get this catchy chorus that pops in my head that is the basis of the start of the song. So for example, I wrote a riff. So the song on the album called War Cries, which will be coming to streaming on May 24th. So just a little bit later this month. That one, I originally wrote a riff when I was very angry, and I called it something completely different. It was called Wrath the Fury God. Don't even know where that came from, but it was just a riff, and I had no idea how to complete it. But then when I sang in the shower, so when I was in the shower, I was humming and I was stamping my feet, and I came up with the pound pound hit the ground. And I built that out, and I was like, now where do I go from here? And it took me like days, almost weeks. And then randomly, I realized that both Wrath the Fury God and the Pound Pound were in the same key. So then I merged them together, and War Cries became whole. And then I built everything else around that because I finally had the complete song. And then I had some of the lyrics, but when I had approached Stephanie through Pete, I still didn't have the whole thing written, and I warned her of that. I said, "War Cries is mostly done, but I still got to work on some lyrics." She's like, "Well, let me listen to it." And like a week later, she came back and she's like, "Hey, I think I got your lyric problem fixed." So she ended up, helping finishing the lyrics on that song. So she's got a credit on that. And then sometimes, the song is completely written musically with a melody in mind. I don't know what the words are going to be, but I have the title of the song, so I know the subject matter. But I don't necessarily have the way I want like the lyrics to go. So sometimes the process is the whole song is created, and I have this melody in my head, and then I start building the lyrics. And for me, a lot of it is timing. So sometimes I'm very like for Remember My Name took me forever to write the lyrics. I knew that I wanted it to be a musical retelling of the Iliad, kind of from Achilles' point of view. But I also wanted to be like musical theater esque. So I created one part to be the narrator and another part to be Achilles himself. Um, singing in the song, and that's how I built that one out. And I was very particular about the lyrics on that one because it needed to be, you know, especially Achilles' parts, is because he was speaking, and each chorus is different, which made it even harder because I had to write three separate choruses because it was more of a musical than a straight up metal song would normally be. So the first chorus is he's pumping up the Myrmidons to go into battle. The second chorus is he's about to fight Hector and he's pissed because, Hector, killed Patroclus. And then the third chorus is him realizing that, he should have done his life a little bit different. And he's asking his brothers that he's killed in battle to take him home now that he's dying. So it's a very deliberate. Everything that I do is very, very, very deliberate with the music. So it does take me somewhere between 50 and 80 hours to craft each and every one of those songs.
So yeah, I can definitely see why. And actually, it's pretty cool too with what you're covering in your lyrics as well there too. But I guess in terms of lyric wise too, I know one you mentioned earlier about your father and everything too. Do you kind of just base it on your emotions? I guess what you're feeling that day. Or I guess what else do your lyrics delve into?
Sometimes, like Farewell was definitely that. Farewell was me pouring every emotion that I had about what happened with my mother and Alzheimer's and me not being there, when she lost her faculties. And when I finally was able to go out to see her, because I was in Kentucky, she was in Massachusetts. She was already gone. So I had extreme guilt, and Farewell was my way of finally dealing with the guilt of not being there for her when I should have. I always felt like I was a bad son because I wasn't there before she fell. So Farewell is that, and Farewell was also meant. It's longer, and it takes you through the stages of grief, and it's also meant because I know how hard those feelings were. It's also meant to be a kind of a guide for others that are going through the same thing. It's a way to help them cope with similar feelings of grief and them going through those tough situations. The almost every single one of the songs is a metaphor for something. Yes, the lyrics are fantasy. A lot of them are fantasy driven. However, if you read between the lines, and I do actually on the Bandcamp, if you look at each of the tracks, I explain each and every single one of them. So you can look at the explanations of what the meaning behind all of those songs were. War Cries was for the independent music community. Like it's a Viking song. It's masquerading as a Viking, anthemic song, but it's because of how difficult the industry is. This is our war cry. This is us arming to push for what's happening right now with the living wage act that's being presented to our government right now. That song was meant to be our war cry. You know, um, the hero walks alone is a metaphor for my experiences as a parent. You always feel like you have to put yourself in front of your kids. You are their protector, your shield, where a true knight is a shield for his king, his country, his people, right? So again, there's all these deep metaphors that go with the music, and it is all emotion based. But when I'm writing the lyrics, I try to make the lyrics very intelligent that way, so that they seem to be about one thing where they're actually about another. Starfall, which is probably one of the craziest ones, happened because I dreamt about the end of the world. But I dreamt about the end of the world while playing Warcraft 3. And I was playing the character called the Priestess of the Moon, which is the night elf that rides the white tiger. And her move, when you get her to level 10, is called Starfall, which is decimating. And I came up with that because I was playing that character. And then when I looked out the window, I saw a whole bunch of stars falling, which were actually nuclear warheads because somebody pushed the doomsday button and everybody launched all of their nukes and destroyed the earth. So that's what actually starts. So Starfall, again, sounds like it's very fantasy based. And if you watch the video also tells that story. So we put the character into a VR MMO, virtual reality world, and she's playing a video game. That's kind of like from the anime Sword Art Online, where it's you're actually immersed in the game, and then when she takes off the VR helmet and looks out the window, she sees the nuclear head right about to hit. So the end of the song blows up into a mushroom cloud.
I'll say, it's New Year's Eve whenever that was happening. It was, instead of shooting off the fireworks, they shot off all the nukes instead.
Yeah. Yep. So each one of them has a similar story to that. And I'm going to keep doing that. And I don't know if you noticed, but I like two of them were based on literary works, right? So remember, My Name is off of the Iliad. The Musketeer is off of Alexander Dumas's The Three Musketeers. And I'm probably going to keep similar themes. I'm probably going to craft each and every album that Knightfall does in that way, where there'll be like an 80s original style song in there. There'll be a couple of songs that are based on literary works, or even historical events. And then there'll be, some of the more fun, campy, symphonic songs that I've thrown together in there as well. So I've kind of figured out a formula of how I want the Knightfall albums to continue to go.
Have you only released one album so far, or I guess because I wasn't sure how many you had released just as like singles?
Yeah, so the Destiny Calling album is the first album, and all the singles that were released are on that album.
Okay. So do you do it like that, or do you release the album first, then singles afterwards, or do you do singles first and bring it all together?
So we originally I was gonna do the album, but with all of the guests, it was taking a long time. So we started, releasing the singles first, and then I started to do a pre-order. I was planning on releasing the album in November, and then this injury happened, where I ended up in and out of hospitals for 3 months. Then my diabetes was out of control, so they couldn't do the surgery. So then I had to find a way to go back to work. But during all of that time, I couldn't move. Like my neck was so bad, I was in bed for 2 months straight. I think the first time I actually tried to do anything was like 30 days after the initial injury, and that was my first time venturing out of the house, and it was on Halloween, just so that I could try to make sure my kids had a good Halloween. So I, mustered the energy and went through the pain of it and took them to their little Halloween. I lasted an hour. That's all I could do, was 1 hour. But yeah, so what we decided to do is we released the album exclusively digitally to Bandcamp on March 22nd. And then the physical album released, because I finally was able to get them back from the printers, on the 29th of March, which is a full 24 color booklet, like the old days, like the 80s and 90s, the old way, right? So I went all out for the actual physical album. And the rest of the songs that have not been released to streaming will continue to be released on a schedule for the rest of this year. So War Cries comes out in May. And then in July, you have Remember My Name will come to streaming. And then September will be Children of Time. And then November, the first week of November, I think it's the 8th, Raise Your Fist comes out. And then at the very end of December, we wrap it all up with Destiny Calling coming out, the title track coming out at the end of the year to streaming.
It's so badass. Actually, how does Bandcamp work? Because I've done a couple of interviews where people mention about it too. Does it do like streaming, or does it also do the physical copies?
So it gives everybody a chance to preview the album. So when you go to Bandcamp, you can stream each song, like I think up to 3 times before you have to buy it if you want to keep listening to it, right? So it gives everybody the chance to at least listen, and if they want to buy it, it's there for $10, $9.99. The cool thing about Bandcamp, though, is if you like the artist enough and you want to give more than the $10, like if you want to give them $20, $30 because you want to support them, you can go ahead and do that. If you do it on Bandcamp Fridays, Bandcamp doesn't take any cut from that whatsoever, right? So the first Friday of every month, you go and you buy the album, and 100% of that goes to the artist.
Oh,
pretty cool.
That's so badass. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Actually, what do you use for distributing wise? Do you use DistroKid or CD Baby?
So I use DistroKid. I've looked at the differences between the two. At the time, I wasn't willing to spend all the money up front. There may come a time where I may switch. I'm not sure. DistroKid hasn't done me wrong or done anything that's like, messed with me. Like I've seen horror stories from some other people, but I've not gone through that with them at all so far. So they've been pretty good. And then a couple of my other collaborators use DistroKid, so being able to do like the splits for revenue and stuff like that, that's so easy with DistroKid. And getting a sync, not a sync license, but a cover license through DistroKid is also super easy. So for doing the Invincible cover and being able to release that with a cover license, they did all of that for me, so I wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, it definitely comes in handy. Actually, does DistroKid include Bandcamp whenever you're getting ready to like distribute the music out?
No, Bandcamp is something that you do have to do yourself, which it takes a little bit of time, but I actually like Bandcamp because Bandcamp allows me to become more personal with the people. So if you follow me on Bandcamp and you go and you read all the stuff that I have there, I've got all the lyrics there of each of the songs, but then I have backstories for each of the songs and how they kind of came to fruition. So it allows me to give a little bit more to the fans of the project than just the standard distribution that DistroKid offers.
Fair enough, yeah. And I forgot to ask this earlier, but I guess which part of the world are you hailing from, actually? Are you in Massachusetts or Kentucky?
So I'm in Kentucky. I was born and raised in Massachusetts, but my wife is from here. I moved out here almost, I would say, about getting close to 11 years now. So we went back and forth from Tennessee and Kentucky based on my job with Verizon. So we were in Tennessee for a few years, and then we came back to Kentucky after a stint in Tennessee, and then we found this place, which is our forever home. And at that time, my mother had passed, and my father had gotten really, really ill. So we sold his house in Massachusetts, moved him here, built a handicap, an in-law suite, which is actually come in handy for me for this whole thing because it's on the first floor. It's all handicap accessible with bars and a special non-slip floor, non-slip shower and stuff like that. So it's been, and that's where I'm coming from to you right now is from that little apartment. Um, but we built that for him so that we could take care of him, so we wouldn't have to put him into a home. And because we did all of that, and I'm the only child, we were able to get this. The house is paid. Because of the sale of my dad's house in Massachusetts and stuff like that, we used it to build this room and pay off this house so that we would be set, so that we wouldn't have to worry. All we would have to worry about would be his medical expenses. Made it super easy for us. So thanks to my dad, and that's another reason why this song "Not Ready to Let You Go." I want to make sure I release that because my dad took care of me. My parents were the best. Like I know some people have bad situations with parents and stuff like that, but mine were the way that parents should have been. Like all parents should be like that. And I try to be the same. I try to emulate what my dad and what my mom taught me, to be just the best dad and husband that I possibly can be to my family. So I don't just try to talk about the code of chivalry. I try very much to live what I preach.
Yeah. Actually, did you say your parents weren't technically supportive for music wise, but they say like you get a stable job and then you can do the music thing more as a hobby and then more as a career?
My mom was. My dad was very, he owned his own business, so he was very alpha, and he wanted the sure thing. He never achieved his dreams. He did the things that he knew would support his family, and that's what was important to him. So he gave up on his dreams when he was younger. So I chose, and I saw what that did to him. He kept that business going until 2 months before he died. We kept doing the bookkeeping for that business. And I will say this though, the reason why he kept it going though was because he had multiple crews of people that relied on a steady income. So even though he wasn't doing it anymore and he wasn't making much money off of that business, he kept it going to give them a job. My dad was also the knight. So
Defending his kingdom, yeah.
yeah, he was also the knight. And he did that for everybody. And one of the other reasons why I knew that the knight thing was so important is because when we did his funeral in 2021, COVID restrictions were still in effect. The funeral home freaked out a little bit on me because we had so many people show up for his funeral. We have a big family, so there was already like 20, 30 people there, but then like over 100 plus more people showed up. And when they were coming down the line to tell me who they were, it was the same story or a similar story with every single one of them. Hey, you don't know me, but your dad helped me when nobody else would. Your dad gave me a job when I had lost my job. Your dad helped me do this. Your dad, it was always my dad helped them do something and they are still here because of him. Right. So I never knew any of that stuff. My dad didn't talk about it. He was humble. He didn't ask for anything in return from any of those people. He did it because it was the right thing to do because he had that moral compass. Again, he was a knight. He was Superman. Like he was that to me. And this is another way of just, kind of paying my respects.
Good man. And sorry I lost him right there too. So may he rest in peace. So
I appreciate
that's all
it.
good to hear. No worries.
Thank you. Yeah,
I guess get back into the script actually, but in terms of the challenges that you face today, outside of the obvious with your surgery and everything too, I guess, what challenges do you face these days being a musician?
it's expensive. Creating a musical project and doing it the right way is not a cheap expense. When you create a band name, you want to make sure that if you're going to be taking this seriously, you want to make sure that you also cover your legal bases as well. So I trademarked Knightfall under music. I did a thorough search before I decided that was going to be the name to make sure that nobody else was doing it for music. And the only trademark on Knightfall was for the TV show. And Knightfall is not going to be a TV show, so I could trademark our version of Knightfall in the categories that I needed to make it my brand. So Knightfall is my brand. I own that trademark. That's not that's not inexpensive. It's a very expensive process because you have to have lawyer fees. You have to, you can try doing it yourself, but if you screw it up, it can take years to get it fixed. So I went through a lawyer. I went through a renowned company that helps with trademarks called the Trademark Factory, which they have their own team of lawyers that are assigned to your case, and they help you in the categories that you are going, like, so for example, I'm going to be, streaming, I'm going to be doing merchandising and all of that stuff. So I have to trademark it in those two categories. If I ever get to the point where the band plays live, then I have to do another trademark for that category for Knightfall as well. So that's not cheap. Then, of course, we did 2 fully produced music videos. Music videos of that caliber, also not cheap at all. I don't know how to professionally mix and master. I can do it okay from what I've learned over the last few years, but I needed somebody that could do that. And of course, that's not going to come pro bono either, right? So mixing and mastering is something that, does cost money. And then you have to market, and you have to be willing to invest, some money in marketing to start getting the name out there, the music out there, to get it in front of an audience. Networking, not all of that comes free. So when you take a music project like this, you do have to look at it like a business, and you have to treat it as such, and you have to be willing to invest money into it. So I did. I invested, a decent amount. I won't say how much, but I invested a lot more. I invested about as much as somebody would pay for a brand new car. How about that?
Those are either that or your life savings. So I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah. Luckily, the reason why I was able to do it, though, my dad. He had life insurance and stuff like that, and my wife and I, we had enough left over where I could use a little bit of this to fund that project. I will not be able to fund a second album out of my own pocket. I will not. So the next album will be completely only happening if we can get a Kickstarter going to get that one going. That's the only way that's going to happen, because what I do is such a big production that it takes so many hands that I have to be able to pay people. It's that simple. And the people that are working on the album deserve to be paid. I got lucky where a lot of my vocalists did stuff for me because they wanted to be part of the project. But it's also not fair that they spent time doing this and didn't get compensated for it. So I get it for the first album. We're just starting out. It's awesome that they were able to do that for me. But for the second one, I want to be able to pay them a wage because that's what they deserve.
Yeah, it actually comes full circle. First off of your dad helping you fund this for little project you're doing, and then the whole thing with the act that you were talking about earlier that needs to pass through U.S. Congress. So yeah, still comes full circle. So yeah, I can see. And I guess, can you tell the audience what the current lineup is for Knightfall?
So the only permanent member is me. I'm the composer, the founder, the orchestrator. I do most of the music. I come up with, the basic rhythm guitars, the ideas for drums and stuff like that. And then I do most of the lyrics. I have gotten help from Jessica and Sergio. Jessica helped with a bit of Starfall that just didn't flow right. I couldn't get it flowing the way I wanted it to, so she fixed that for me. Sergio and her wrote most of the lyrics to Raise Your Fist. I helped with a little bit of it, but I gave them the ideas behind it, but I was just stuck. It was one of those songs that where you're just stuck. And when you have a song that you're stuck on, and you can't figure it out, usually that's because you're not meant to finish it. That's when you collab with somebody, right? So I asked them, I was like, hey, take a look at this, see if you can come up. They came up with great lyrics for it. Same thing with War Cries. I was partially stuck. Stephanie fixed it. So I always tell people, don't be afraid to ask for help, because help will come to those who ask for it. You don't have to do everything yourself. Sergio is a wonderful producer. Like, there were certain aspects that sounded a little less real and a little more synthy that he was able to help me take care of, in the production side of it. He was my mixing and mastering producer on the majority of this album, with his production company called Wild Thorn Productions. He was also the videographer. He filmed both of the music videos for Farewell and Starfall with Jessica. He's actually the one that found all the actors and set up the location shoots. He's a consummate professional. He's amazing. If you have the funds to be able to fund a music video, y'all need to go through Sergio, because he's awesome. He'll even travel. I know. I think he did a music video for a band out in like Washington State or something like that. So he travels to do the videography stuff when need be as well. But the lineup of guests. So we have 7 vocalists, 3 guitarists. Patrick Goebel is one of the guitarists. He did the majority of the songs. George Acker is another of the guitarists. He did 3 of the songs where he did all the guitars, and then he supplied a solo for Farewell. Then you have Sergio, who is a multi-instrumentalist himself. So he helped with refining the orchestration a little bit, and then he also did the guitar track for Destiny Calling itself. Then you have all of the vocalists. You have D. Wolf, who sang on Waiting for You, The Musketeer, and Invincible. You have Jessica Mercy, who ended up doing, it was only supposed to be one song, but she ended up doing a bunch. So she ended up doing Starfall, Farewell, the narrator for Remember My Name. She co-sung with Susie Scarlett on Raise Your Fist. And then she was also part of the ensemble track that was Destiny Calling. You have Pete Rawcliffe, who is the male sopranist from the UK. So he's amazing. I absolutely adore Pete. And he did the narration for Farewell. He sang on Children of Time, and he also did Hero Walks Alone, the soprano parts for that. Then you have, he introduced me to Stephanie Keogh, who did Children of Time with Pete, sang War Cries, and then sang on Destiny Calling. And then Stephanie introduced me to Marcos Penade, who is my growler, and he did a growl at the very end of Children of Time. He did growls for Hero Walks Alone and a little section of growls for Raise Your Fist. Then he did clean vocals for the chorus of War Cries and for Destiny Calling as well. Very talented individual. He's a fantastic unknown growler. People don't know him almost at all, but he's awesome he's good at enunciating. You can understand all the words that he says when he does his growls, which is awesome. I needed something like that. I wanted something like that. Then, of course, you have the amazing Adrian Jouadou, who did the voice of Achilles on Remember My Name. Adrian and I have become very good friends. He is definitely going to be on more stuff with Knightfall. He is going to be singing the song that Not Ready to Let You Go. He'll be singing that one when we release that. That'll be a special single that will not have any ties to any album. That'll just be a special single that is released sometime this year, with Sergio doing all the instrumentation and Adrian doing that. And then Susie Scarlett sings Raise Your Fist. She sounds a lot like Nora Luhimo from Battle Beasts with her raspiness. So that was kind of a welcome treat that I was able to get her to do it. She's from Mexico. Marcos is from Spain. I have people from all over the place. Adrian's from France originally. We've got people from the US, the UK. Dee is from Italy. So we've got people from kind of everywhere across the globe coming together to do all of this, which is pretty nifty. And then last but not least, I do sing on two of the songs. So I sing on The Hero Walks Alone. That baritone is me. And I also sing the first verse in Destiny Calling with Jessica, which was the first time that Jessica and I have sung on something together in 15 years. So that was kind of a really cool thing. Originally, Dee was actually supposed to sing that part, but her schedule wouldn't work for our schedule, so she couldn't do it. So I ended up singing it, and I'm actually very happy that I did because it came out great. So yeah, that's pretty much everybody that at least I don't think I've left anybody out. I believe that's everybody.
Hopefully, we got everybody. And I know I mentioned Game of Thrones earlier because in the book series, he did like the whole lineages of all the families and everything too. That's what you got to do now with Knightfall too, because you got everybody in this like whole group all around the world as well. So it's like you expanded your kingdom. So
I expanded the kingdom, and I hope to expand it further. I really do. Like I said, I've got one cool thing about being laid up like this is with modern technology, you have the ability to come up with stuff even if you can't get down into your studio. So, you've got GarageBand and all these little applications where I can just play melodies with my fingers on my phone if I need to come up with ideas. There are other tools out there that if you come up with an idea, you can, record it like directly to your phone or to your computer. It may not be the best of quality, but hey, at least you can hum an idea, right? So
something like that. So that's all cool. I guess speaking of technology wise, I guess do you use AI for anything in terms of music and art wise?
I do. And so I look at AI as a tool. So when I do, it's like, so the album artwork is done. The main artwork for Destiny Calling is done by Thomas Ewart. He is the guy who did the Scarecrow for Avantasia. He did the artwork for that album for Avantasia. A lot of artists of that caliber cost a lot of money. It's if I were to have had him do everything, it would have cost me over $10,000 just to have him do the artwork for the entire album. It would have been like $11,000-$12,000 after taxes, probably somewhere in that vicinity. I knew I couldn't afford that. So I did have to resort to using AI, and I did have to teach myself how to use Photoshop because AI does not get stuff correct half the time. So what I did was I would generate, backgrounds, I would generate certain images, and sometimes that would take hours. Like I would spend 8 hours finding the right image and then cutting them from these AI images to create something new. So there was a lot of graphic art work that goes into it. No, I wasn't drawing it myself, but I use Photoshop and that type of thing. Sometimes I will use AI music just to give me an idea on something because sometimes it does come up with pretty good ideas. Am I going to sit there and generate an entire song through AI and then put it out as a work? No. But am I going to get an idea, see if something cool happens where I'm like, ooh, I like this and then build on it? Sure. Why not? There's really no harm in that. These are, if you use them the way that they should be used, which is as a tool, I don't see the harm in it. Now, if you're going to generate something and pass it off as your own work that you did it 100%, that type of thing, that's where I have a problem. Do not tell me that you created this artwork and that you drew it. Don't lie. Be honest about what you are doing because we can tell the difference, right? But I hold no secrets, so I do use those things as tools to aid in the process. It's kind of like having another artist working with you when you don't have someone readily available, right? So like for example, like I really don't know what I want. I know I want the chords to be this, 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 and this, but I don't know what I want the melody to be. Well, let me tell this thing that I have this song in this key and see if it comes up with a melody that I might like. Boom. Get yourself out of that writer's block. Same thing with lyrics. You can use Chat GBT to get you out of that, lyrical stuck. I've done that so many times where I've just said, hey, I'm writing a song about this. Give me something. Most of the time, I don't like 75% of what it gives me, but it might give me one line where I'm like, ooh, that's cool. And then I go and I adjust it and then I write more stuff because it gives me an idea. That's how I use it as a tool.
I actually heard on the radio about how a couple of like the more bigger names in the music scene these days are actually kind of using AI, and unfortunately, they kind of took some heat for it there too. So I recently been bringing it up in the interviews because I wanted to at least see like first off what people's opinions was, but also like what they're also using it for there too. And what I have gouged is pretty much when you are like us, for instance, more like the indie independent artists, you really want to use it like that because, like you said, you can't really afford an artist who's going to like draw maybe something that looks pretty badass is going to cost you like a whole bunch afterwards. So
right. We don't have the money to do so. If I become big and I can pay an artist to do it all the time, yeah, sure. I would be able to do that. Or if an artist will charge me like $50 per and they're actually like that same level quality, sure, I can afford something like that. The problem is that the artists that are of that caliber usually are going to come with a large price tag.
normally, yeah, you can see why. Oh well, and I guess this kind of you can kind of incorporate this into this question right here. I guess. What advice would you give to musicians in band together, and I guess other musicians near neck of the woods and beyond?
Don't give up, man. Like I almost gave up on my dreams. It's never too late. Okay. It's never too late because I quit music when I was in my late 20s. Right. And then I come back to it, and here I am at 40, and I have finally achieved that dream. I have released a professional quality album. Like that rivals what bands with labels are doing these days. It can be done. So never give up. But I will say this, don't settle either. Don't just push something out there for the sake of pushing it out there. If you're going to be proud of what you're going to throw out. Don't half-ass anything. I see that all the time, especially with independent. You're so excited to put something out there, and you don't want to wait until you get it right, that you just put it out there. Because I've heard some songs with such beautiful potential, poorly executed, and then thrown out to Spotify, and that's going to tarnish your career. If there's an instrument or if there's something that you can't do, don't be afraid to collaborate and get someone who can do the part that you can't do well, right? Because you want it to be 100%, not 60%, not 70%, but you want it to be 100%. I held an audition for Remember My Name to find the right person for Achilles. I had over 20 people send me audition tapes, right? There were some great ones that I could have gone with. There were some ones that were not so great, right? Even though I know some of these people personally, am I going to choose them because I know them? No. I'm going to do what's best for the album, right? When Adrian sent me his take, originally I was going to do it as a tenor, and I had a couple of people that killed it in the tenor. But when Adrian sent me his, the dynamic in his voice, like he had to sing it differently. And I didn't even realize that that was a possibility. Like it didn't even dawn in my head that it could be sung like that, right? So his audition not only surprised me, but literally made me completely do a 180 on how I wanted the part of Achilles to be sung. And sometimes a good performance will do that. So you never know, but always give 110% and make sure that what you put out is done well. That's it.
I like it too. Yeah, yeah, I can understand. Actually, I've done a total of 4 with a 5th one on the way. 2 of them were with Storm Kingdom, and the other one's with Way Under the Bridge. Actually, I released my second one with Way Under the Bridge yesterday. All streaming platforms there too. So not to my own horn, but I can see what you're actually saying there too. It's almost like go strong because I can only do drums and I do the growling vocals as well. So I need somebody else to do like the bass and the guitars. So that's why I like doing collabs better. This is a lot more fun.
If you
Fun
haven't
with people, yeah.
if you haven't done it, there's this nifty place that I've discovered recently. It's called Submit Hub, and it's kind of multifaceted. So you can release unreleased songs for people to critique. Like they have a hot or not section where you can actually have submitted out there. People can give you feedback before you even release the song on this platform, right? And it's non-bias, right? Because these are people that have never heard you before and stuff like that. So I've been going on there and I've been listening to stuff with a producer's ear. I've been listening to stuff from a musician's ear. And when I hear something that, has potential that needs work, I'm going to put in my comments. I was like, here's what you did well. Here's what you need to continue to work on before you release this. Some people, unfortunately, submit these things that have already released these to Spotify, which breaks my heart every single time. Because when I hear it, I'm sitting here going, I'm like, well, that's the reason why you have, only 100 listens, is because this is not done well, right? And I'm not trying to be an asshole by saying that, but there's good, and then there's mediocre, and then there's bad, right? So if you have something that's bad, you need to know. I'm not trying to be the Simon Cowell of the indie community, but it's just kind of the truth there. You need to know if something needs to be worked on before submitting it out there, because this work is going to be out there. You're submitting this for the world to hear. You want it to sound good. And that's what I'm about. I'm about trying to make sure that it's professional. One of the things that I do hope to do with Knightfall down the road as we grow is I want to create a fund that is crowdfunded that will be there to help artists that are on the brink of doing something great monetarily be able to produce that something great.
That'd be interesting.
So
I guess I was gonna say, how are you going to be able to do it? Is it like through like a site, for instance, like a Kickstarter?
Right. It basically, I've created Knightfall as a company as well. So Knightfall is actually Knightfall LLC here in the state of Kentucky. So the idea behind the business, once we get going further, Knightfall is going to become an entertainment business. It's not just going to be a band. It's going to become a full-fledged entertainment business. I have written music, orchestral music, for a video game that's should be launched on Steam maybe towards the end of this year. And it's a 2D fantasy, kind of reminds you of old school Diablo type of fantasy game that's like endless mobs. I've created music for that. A friend of mine, actually one of my collaborators, George Acker, he's a very gifted coder, and that's what he does for a living outside of music. Is he works for a company where he builds apps and codes and stuff like that. So he is learning Unreal Engine right now. So we're planning on creating a fantasy game that features a lot of really cool symphonic styles of music within that video game. We even have built one of the towns. When you get there, the quest will be to rescue the town that's under a spell, where the entire town can do nothing but speak in song. And you have to figure out what the cause of that is, and the quest will be to rescue that town. And it's kind of paying tribute to all of the musical episodes of TV shows like Buffy and Xena and all of that stuff that have done that type of thing in the past. So we have all of these plans for a 5 to 10 year, thing to keep building Knightfall as a platform, and not just Knightfall, the collaboration project that just does the Knightfall music. It's going to be turned into more of an entertainment business as well down the road.
That's gonna be so cool. Actually, I've had a similar ambition, more so helping out bands on social media. So since everyone's working multiple jobs, for instance, they got the main job that's mainly paying the taxes and all that, and then this, and then maybe whatever touring they are doing, they don't really have enough time to do social media as well there too. So I thought putting something out as well. So I'll have to see what happens. So it's something I'm looking forward to maybe this summer, and see if we can get it kicked off. So we'll see what happens. I guess last thing too before
Oh.
we jump into the fun questions. I guess when did you join Band Together?
So let's see. Christina. I met Christina before Band Together even. So Vox and Sticks, the independent community, Sepsis, all that stuff was just really beginning to become big. The end of like January, I would say, of 2023, where people really started to start networking with each other. So I want to say I met Christina somewhere February, like shortly after that, when we were doing like, support each other's, stuff. And that's when I started meeting, a whole bunch of the different people within the independent community, like Anger Overdose, Death Pigeon, Sloppy Joe Games, Kenny, and all of that stuff. So I want to say that we started following each other before Band Together even formed. And then when she created that group and sent us all the hey, join this group, this is what we're doing with it, I think I've been a member of it since, kind of the get-go, from the beginning.
Yeah, what they got going on is pretty interesting there too. And actually, most people I have talked to, they always joined like a little later, or kind of like right as it really started to take off there too. So you were like right there. We call it Station Genesis. They call it that too. So
Gotcha. Yep.
yeah.
Nope. I had a lot of fun with getting to know Christina, and I helped with the Yellow for Yanni, that when they were doing a real big push on that to try and help out, Angela, raise some funds for the, for that nonprofit to help find a cure for that genetic disorder. So I was right there with them from the beginning on that, and Christine has always been very, very supportive. And I want to say that I did an interview with her. I don't remember when it was now. It was late in 2023, I think. If I remember correctly. Yes. No. I had just injured myself. The injury where this became apparent, I had just, and I didn't want to cancel because she had been booked for a while, and I had said, "Hey, I'm interested." So she got me booked, and then this happened, and we thought we were going to have to cancel, and I was like, "Nope, I don't care what I have to do." So I had my wife prop me in a very specific position so I wouldn't be in pain, and I still did the interview with her even though I was in an extreme amount of pain.
He's committed when he wants to go through with an interview there too. So
Yep.
that's up to him,
Listen,
man.
I try to be like, I try not to miss anything. I don't think I've rescheduled any interview regardless of what's happened to me.
That's good to hear. And we made it happen today, so that's all good. Even though the weather is practically shitty outside. So
Yep. And while recovering, I still have an hour. I have to wear this thing for 4 hours.
Jeez, that sounds pretty. It's almost like a big
Dang.
vest in a way. Yeah, it looks like a pain. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They've got me on some pretty good stuff though. They got me on some Percocets and some Flexerol and gabapentin. So they've got me on some pain medication to, help me get through everything. I'll tell you one thing though, it does not make the pain go away. It just dulls it. That's all it does. It makes it tolerable so that you can still do certain things. But that's all it does. The pain is still there 24/7 until this thing heals.
It's like welcome to hell. So
Yep, that's pretty. Like I said, it's been my own personal hell for a lot of it, unfortunately. But doing this will make it so that I can live a better life down the line. Because if I didn't take care of this now, I would eventually have lost most of the ability to use my left arm. That's how bad the impingement was. It would have gotten to that point.
he would not have been able to headbang anymore. So
I wouldn't have been able to do much more. The good
yeah.
news is I am. People have joked about it. I've got so much metal in my neck now that I'm much more metal than I was before.
Well, that's true. So yeah. Actually, I was thinking of
I've seen
Jack Black
pictures
Tenacious
of
D. Yeah.
people with similar surgeries, and say that again.
No, I was just gonna say I was thinking of Tenacious D's The Metal whenever.
The metal,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's what I was
No,
thinking of.
but
But go ahead. What were you saying?
no, I was gonna say I've got so much metal in my neck that my neck looks like what you would imagine a T-800 from Terminator to look like.
Oh God,
Yeah,
he's the Terminator. Oh no. He's a,
I'm turning, and now with AI we have Skynet. So here we go.
oh God, here we go. So I mean, it's just a couple of years, but we'll see what happens. There. Yeah. So Keith, we breezed through the questions here pretty good. We actually almost talked for close to 2 hours right now, but I guess here let's jump to the fun ones. Ready?
Sure.
I guess let's start with the first one right here. I guess what would you consider as your favorite food?
Even though I can't have it as much as I would like because of the diabetes, my favorite food is a well done mashed potato. And
Typical.
what I mean by that is whipped, properly salted and peppered, properly buttered, and properly cooked. If you do it incorrectly, it does not taste right. And also, if you use the wrong kind of potato, it does not taste right. You use russet or you use Idaho potatoes. If you use any other potato to make mashed potatoes, you're not doing it correctly.
So I guess the Bob Evans mashed potatoes you wouldn't touch at all.
If I have no other choice, I will. I will. But that's like instant potatoes. They're okay. They're not great. My wife makes them really, really good. I make them. I'm amazing at making mashed potatoes because it's my favorite food. But yeah, that is my favorite food. You would think I'm Irish, but I'm not.
Either that or Italian, because a lot of people have been saying pizza or some sort of Italian cuisine. So yeah,
Yep, I am 45% Italian.
so I guess pizza would be like what a close second.
Believe it or not, it really depends. Pizza is. I've had Italian pizza. I've had pizza street. Actually, the best pizza in the world is street pizza in Italy, in Rome specifically. The pizza that we have here sucks in comparison to what they have in Italy. Same thing with gelato. You have not tasted gelato or ice cream or anything similar to it until you've gone to Italy and had real Italian gelato.
I can attest to it because actually I was in Italy last year. And actually, we did have the pizzas. They were a lot bigger than what I thought they were going to be because it was like probably would you say maybe a little bigger than like a medium sized pizza here in the states. But
Yeah,
I was like, I will not be denied, and I finished. I finished it, even though it was like
listen,
ginormous.
but like I said, the best one though, the best. So I had pizza a couple of times in Italy, and the best one was the street pizza. So this guy had this big cart and was making what they call street pizza, and it was cut in squares. So it was not like the triangle cut that we do here in the United States. It was cut in squares, much thicker. And this guy goes to the morning market every morning and gets his ingredients fresh. So it was freshly made pizza on this cart, and it was just outside the Vatican, is where I had this. And I'll always remember it because to this day, it was the best pizza I have ever tasted. Like the sauce, everything from the cheese, the sauce, it was just awesome. And I've never been able to have anything even close to that. I'm spoiled now. I've never been able to have anything close to that ever since that day.
Did you ever go into that again? That game was really nice.
Yes, yep. No, I did a full tour. So my mother's sister, who is the only person on her side of the family that survives us. Actually, I'm one of the last of my mother's side of the family. But she is a nun, and she was stationed. So she's a sister of the Catholic Church. She was stationed in Rome, Italy, for a long time, and we went, and I spent close. It was about 2.5 weeks. I spent in Italy. So we did Rome, we did Venice, we did Florence. I never got to Naples, but we spent a good chunk of our time in the Rome area. So I got to do everything. I got to do everything from the Colosseum to Pompeii, Herculaneum, all of the really cool sightseeings. But the coolest thing was is the convent was an old Italian villa that had like all these secret passageways. and I found an apothecary. Like there was a secret, so an alchemy lab basically. There was a secret passage that led to this old alchemy lab that they had never discovered before, and that was kind of cool.
I don't know if I saw that, but when I was there, not missing much in Naples, but we went more to Sorrento, got chilled in there too, and went to the island of Capri as well.
There you go.
Got Pompeii. We also did see Rome. We actually went and saw the Sistine Chapel.
Yep, went there.
So, saw that. That was actually a late night tour too, so we actually had pretty much to ourselves with like another tour group. But unfortunately,
Nice.
they will not let us share any photos or videos whenever you're in the Sistine Chapel.
Right, because the flash photography can do damage to the actual artwork.
Well, it wasn't so much that. No, I don't think they want you to like share like on social media or anything like that.
Oh, really? Because when we were there, no flash photography, and their reasoning behind it was the photography. If you had too many people taking flash photography, the flash, the light would do damage over time to the actual artwork.
I think I should know about that. But I will say this, and this is when I get to toot my own horn. I got to lock the door to whenever we were leaving the Sistine Chapel.
Nice.
So that much I will share.
It's the same thing with the catacombs. Like you can only go so far because they don't want any of the stuff that's back there disturbed because of they've done a lot to preserve the catacombs down there too. But we did. I mean, we walked all those crazy steps all the way to the top of the Vatican. It was what, like 700 steps, something stupid like that.
I know Florence was the same way with the Duomo, but we didn't do any of those steps. I think it was St. Andrews in London. That was bad enough, and that was like 400 some steps. So
yeah, no, the Vatican was like It was like 700 steps. It was something ridiculous to get to the very top.
oh, there goes our exercise for the day. So
Yep.
but for next fun questions, I guess, what would you consider is your favorite movie?
Easy. It's been my favorite movie ever since I first saw it. It's The Princess Bride.
You're a Princess Bride fan too. Man, everybody's starting to dig it these days.
That is my absolute favorite. Before it was the last movie that I watched before I had my surgery, because if the surgery was dangerous because of what it was and what they were doing, like there was a chance that I could have lost my life during the surgery because of all the things they had to do. There's 9 separate procedures. Right. So there was a risk there. I mean, he was a great surgeon, but there was always a risk. So the last movie that I watched prior to going to sleep that night was The Princess Bride. It's been my go-to whenever I've been sick. It's been my go-to whenever I'm feeling crappy. It's the reason why I waited so long to find the right person to marry, is because I believed so heavily in finding true love. Just like all the themes that are in that movie is the stuff that I've tried to live my life by. That, and you've got Andre the Giant. And Andre the Giant was one of my favorite people, and I got to meet Andre when I was about 6 years old or so. So it was 1989. They were in Boston. WWF was in Boston, and all the wrestlers were at the gym training facility. And my cousin just so happened to be the like one of the operators or owners of that particular gym. So he let my parents know, and we went down there, and I got Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Roddy Piper, and I was 6. And Andre, I don't know if you've seen the documentaries, Andre loves the kids who are his fans and stuff like that. So even though it must have hurt like hell, he picked me up, and I can say that I was held by Andre the Giant when I was 6 years old.
Inconceivable. So
You keep using that word. I do not think you think it means what I think it means.
I don't know. Actually, who was that actor who was I don't want to say French or Italian, I guess.
No, he was the Spaniard. That was Mandy Patinkin.
I guess what was the lines he was saying when he was fighting that swordsman near the end right there? It was like, "You killed my father, prepare to die," or something like that.
Yes. My diabetes alarm is going off. I have low sugar. But no, he's like, my name is Inigo Montoya. You kill my father, prepare to die.
He can say it over and over. He keeps getting like increasingly faster too. So yeah.
Yep. And then at the end he says it a few times, but then when he actually finds the six-fingered man, which was played by Christopher Guest, um, he says it a bunch, and he was using it to make himself stronger. But at the very end, I love he's just got the best line. He slices the Count's face just like he had done when he was a child, and he said, he'd won the fight, and he's like, offer me money, and he was like, offer me anything in the world, and he's like, anything and more, and he stabs him. He's like, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. And it's just The Princess Bride is very rare that you get a perfect movie, and for me, The Princess Bride is the perfect movie, and it's just my favorite. It has stood the annals of time. Like, it's one of those movies that you can still watch, and everything is believable, even with modern technology and everything even the ROUSs. Like, I love every aspect. The rodents of unusual size. I love every aspect of this film. Rob Reiner did such a great job creating it, and all of the actors played their parts to perfection. Even Billy Crystal's little cameo, and Carol Kane, as the miracle worker, and his wife, are just absolutely fantastic performances. Chris Sarandon, who played Prince Humperdinck, you know him from movies like Fright Night and Child's Play, or a couple of the movies people may have seen him in. I mean, just awesome. Just one of the best movies ever made.
And who was the actor who kept saying inconceivable, who I guess was the ringleader of the
Wallace
group?
Shawn. Yeah, that's Wallace Shawn. He's he's had quite a career. He's been in a lot of different things, and you always know his voice. Like, whenever because he's done a lot of like voice acting for like cartoons, and you always know when he does something. And then of course you had Fred Savage as the grandson. Who he went on to do the Wonder Years and stuff like that. But like, and that's the other thing, that whole relationship between grandson and grandfather, like, that's reading the book at the bedside. My dad used to do stuff for me, like, like that too. And, both of my grandfathers passed away before I was born, so I never got to have that relationship, but I did have that relationship with my dad, so that, again, the movie just speaks to me on so many different levels based on the relationships that are in there. The relationship between Buttercup and Wesley, and how true love is supposed to be. That's what I found with my wife. We've been married for over a decade, 3 kids later, and I can't imagine my life with anybody else. I found the person who I'm supposed to be with. She is my Buttercup.
That's good to hear. All right. And for the next one right here, what would you consider as your favorite alcoholic drink and non-alcoholic drink?
I don't drink that much, honestly. If I were to have a beer, it would be seasonal. It would have to be a Samuel Adams Oktoberfest beer from Massachusetts. Grew up on that. So if I have any other alcoholic drink, it's usually some kind of glass of red wine. I like sweet red wine, which I can't have that often because of the diabetes, unfortunately, because it's got sugar content in it. But a good Roscato would be something that I would like. But when I did drink, way back, it was usually some form of Jack and Coke is usually what was my go-to. I haven't had that in over 5 years, though. Like I said, I don't drink much. Non-alcoholic, good Lord, I love peach tea. I could drink peach tea all the time.
Is a particular brand?
I've tried making it myself. It comes out okay when I do it. It's a lot of work to make it. So Crystal Light usually does a pretty good peach tea. There's no sugar content in it too, so it's something that I can actually add.
For last final questions here, I guess, what would you consider is currently your favorite song, or a song you've been listening to a good bit recently?
I'm I mean, I spent so much time listening to the Knightfall album over and over and over and over again to make sure that all of the songs were sounding the way I wanted to. Like I spent the majority of my time. I haven't been doing much music listening this last month because my ears needed a break. I have a guilty pleasure, and I mean, I don't really. I guess it's not really a guilty pleasure. I know a lot of people love this band, but I absolutely adore a band called Electric Callboy. I don't know if you ever heard of them. No, they're German based, and they are ooh, dance metal. I guess is what. I mean, they really do pump you up. You should go listen to them. They are crazy though. The first song I ever heard from them was a song called Hypa Hypa, and it was just so catchy. It mixes like EDM, like electronic music, with metal music, but like heavy deathcore metal music, and then also has a singer that sings like almost like a pop vocal on top of everything else. It's the weirdest mixture of metal music ever, but it works, and I absolutely adore it. Anyway, they have a song called Techno Train that is catchy as all get out, and there's a breakdown part where they do something where they do choo 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 or riding on the techno train, but it's screamed, and the whole song is just fun to listen to, and the video is hilarious. Everything about the video is like these guys are just having a good time with what they do. If you want like a pick me up band that will just make you smile because of what they are doing, it's them. So they are. I've listened to Techno Train a bunch. Hypa Hypa. Um, um, you Got the Moves is another one where they all have haircuts like they look like they're doing like an 80s music video like Devo would from like the 1980s, but it's hilarious. Everything they do is funny. They did a cover of Every Time We Touch by Cascada in their style, of course, but the video again is just it's hilarious. I love watching their music videos. It's one of the reasons why I wanted the quality that we did with our music videos, is because of watching what they do with their music videos. I'm like, God, this is just so good. I want this level of production on what we do, and I will not settle for anything less than that. But yeah, that's what I've been listening to keep my spirits up with all of this.
And something new every day. Now we can call it like pop metal, if that's what we want to call it, or
It's like
metal, yeah.
It's like club metal. It's like you're literally mixing like dance, like remixed dance music with metal, but with also like extremely harsh vocals from one guy, Kevin, and then you have Nico, who does like this pop pretty vocal on everything too. Like you have to listen to it to understand. You just have to listen to it to understand. Electric Callboy.
Was it, you saying giant cowboy, or is it something?
Callboy. Callboy. Electric
Okay.
Callboy.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And it's called Techno Train, and techno is TEKKNO. Techno Train.
Jeez. Whatever next. All right, I'll have to check them out too. But this is ought to be interesting. So, good choice. All right. So, Keith, we are down to one more question. I guess before we jump into it, did you have any questions for me, or any final words you want to say before we jump into it?
No, just anybody watching, if you're a fan of Knightfall, or if you're just finding Knightfall for the first time, just thank you very much. I mean, everybody has been so supportive of the project, and I know that we're different. Like, we do have a little bit of a different style of symphonic metal than the normal, and that is, of course, on purpose. And a lot of people have embraced, us as, what we are doing and the platform that we're trying to create. And the fans have, that have been very interactive with us on social media and stuff. You all have just been fantastic, and I appreciate everybody's support of the project so far. It's very humbling to go and try to do something like this, and I was thinking maybe we would get like 100 people listening to, these songs. And, on YouTube, we're close to 200,000 views on all of our videos so far on YouTube. And we're approaching similar stats on Spotify with all the songs that we've released. We're, getting close to that as well. So it's just appreciated, everything that everybody has done, and the interactiveness that everybody has had, and speaking with us and sharing things, and just thank you. And we're very humbled the success of the project thus far. And it's just the beginning.
And we're just getting started. So okay.
Just getting started.
But for the fun, or I guess not fun question, for our last question right here, I guess here's how it goes. So you might have harped on it a little bit here too, but given what COVID has done, obviously you went through a good bit right there. So obviously you've been through a lot. But for those musicians as well who perhaps went through something similar that you went through, or perhaps something else entirely different outside of COVID, what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in the post-COVID world?
So, post-COVID world, pre even more technological world is how I'd be looking at this. So I like to watch trends, and I see that with technology, a lot of things are going to be changing over the next 10 years. And one of the things that I predict is going to become even more important is intellectual jobs, which is going to be music, art, film, TV, all things entertainment, because people consume entertainment at copious rates. So my advice is don't give up, keep doing what you're doing, because there are going to be more and more opportunities for music. Getting your music in television, films, all that type of thing is going to happen. There's a lot that's changing right now, and we are going to be part of that change. This is the coolest time to start being in the music world, I feel. And yes, right now it's the calm before the storm. It's the hard time, right? This is where things are hard still. But keep that light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, open, because we're almost through it. Things are changing. The music landscape is going to change for the better for all of us that are creating music. Just keep your chin up and keep doing what you're doing, and always remember that anything can be accomplished with a strong work ethic. If you work hard at whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can accomplish it with the right mindset. And I'll leave you with this. And this is a Keith original. This is a quote that I have formed from my experiences over the years, and I've started telling it to people. It's even in the quote is even in the booklet of that first Knightfall album, on the last page. And it is: true strength is not discovered until it is required.
Spoken like a true prodigy. All right.
There
So
you go.
Keith, we reached into my podcast right here. Boy, oh boy, we talked for a good couple hours right now, and it was a damn good chat. So I guess you got any final words, any shout outs you want to give before we close?
Man, all the people of the independent community have just been absolutely fantastic. Vox and Sticks, Christina, I absolutely adore what she does, and the platform that she has created. And I know she's gone through some, personal things that have been tough, that, have even made her question whether or not she should continue some of the things that she's been doing. And I want to shout out to her and make sure that she knows that what they do, her and Greg, what they do with their platform is amazing, and they need to keep going. Don't give up. Don't give up hope. Just keep going. You've got this. Melanie Nix is another person who does a podcast similar to what you do, where she interviews bands and artists and stuff. She's also a fantastic human being and deserves all the recognition in the world. I do a podcast with her, and I'll probably be seeing her a little bit later tonight. For the Fear podcast, and we do horror movies with another friend of ours from the UK, Mark, and he runs the Hathaway House of Horror page, where he does a lot of reviews on all things horror movies, everything from classics to brand new ones. He's an amazing guy. All of my collaborators, of course, you know who you are. Big thank you to Sergio again with Wildthorn Productions for doing the music videos. He lives off of music, guys. So like, he does mixing and mastering. He does music videos. If you are an artist that wants to get something professionally quality, but at better rates, because let's face it, a real production company would have cost $20,000 to make a video that he made, right? He charges independent music rates, and he's much, much better than some of the ones that are out there too. He does really, really good work. So Wildthorn Productions, go check him out. He is worth the time and the money if you can afford to do the videos with him. He's great, absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, all the people that helped with War Cries. So we had a bunch of people that gave me takes for War Cries that were part of the independent community. John from Superposition. Superposition. Then you've got Kimmy, who does Mama Maiden. She's done a special video that's going to be coming out on the anniversary of Waiting for You. That's an updated lyric video or visualizer video for Waiting for You. So many people. There's just too many to name. The independent community has been fantastic. His Theory, Anger Overdose, Death Pigeon, all these bands that got me in to the beginnings of this. When I first jumped onto the scene and started promoting the project, Anger Overdose and Death Pigeon were like two of the first to start promoting my page, as well as Vox and Sticks. So can't thank everybody enough.
It's quite an extensive list there too, but it's all good. And just for the audience sake, we forgot to cover this for this interview, I guess. So what social media are you guys on?
So the stuff that I'm primarily on, we got Facebook, Instagram. I do have a TikTok as well. Bandcamp is a big one. We do have our main website that has a lot of stuff in there, including full bio workups of all of our collaborators. So the knightfallband.com. So that's our main website, which also has links to our store for merch. But Bandcamp is another one. We're on, all the streaming platforms. So Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, Deezer, Tidal, YouTube Music. We have our YouTube channel, of course, which is growing by the day. Go watch the music videos. We still need the watch hours to monetize. So yes, go watch all the videos so that we can monetize that channel and help put some money back into the project so that we can do more.
Absolutely too. You heard from this guy right here. So, there. So everyone, my guest today was Keith. He's hailing from Kentucky right here. He's part of the group. Actually, we should say the Knights, our group, Knightfall. So Brothers of the Night's Watch. I was trying to do something like that. Brothers or Sisters of the Night Watch, something like that too. And that's not really Game of Thrones, but you get the idea. Nonetheless, we got Keith from Knightfall right here. So he's obviously recovering right now. So we wish him all the best going forward and to a speedy recovery as well. Just go hit him up on the socials. But check out, I guess, everybody's you've been working with, are they all part of separate groups as well?
Yeah. So, Pete does his own solo stuff, but he also sings for a group called Crown Solace. Jessica, Mercy, and Sergio Salvucci, they are part of Anaria. They do have a couple of other projects. The names of them escape me at the moment. They are on the website, though. I have them listed there. Stephanie is currently in between projects. She was part of Nerdguard, but they parted ways last year. I think she's just kind of doing her own solo stuff. Marcos is his own solo stuff. Patrick is his own solo stuff. George is his own solo stuff. Patrick does like orchestration and stuff like that. He's endorsed by the Vienna Sound Library, so he does orchestration for some of their videos. And then George is coming out with his own symphonic metal album at some point, so be on the lookout for that. Susie does a lot of covers, so she's got a YouTube page, but doesn't have a band as far as I know. I think that's everything. No, Adrian. So Adrian, his project is Heartlight. His main project is Heartlight, and they just released an album here within the last month as well. So go check out that. He's got a very unique style to what he does, and with his fiance, her vocal and his vocal combined, they are a powerhouse together. They're awesome. You got to go listen to their album.
That sounds good. You heard from Keith right here, so make sure we go support our brothers and sisters out there in the world. And pass that damn bill already. You gotta make a living off of music these days. What's going on in U.S.
Yes.
Congress? So
Let's finally get what's owed to us by the streaming giants.
absolutely. All right. McKeith, I wish you all the best going forward into a speedy recovery there, mate. So you stay safe. Rock on.
Rock on,
Stay
man.
tuned, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.